The Can I Borrow Your Car podcast is dedicated to transforming how financial advisors and client-focused professionals grow their business through referrals. Drawing on decades of expertise, best-selling books, and industry recognition, the podcast's mission is to help listeners fill their sales funnel with more ideal clients than they require. By building a referral system rooted in generosity, respect, and genuine care for relationships. Get ready to get started. Here's your host, Mike Garrison.
Here we go. That is a shout out for some people. If you know, you know. This is the Can I Borrow Your Car podcast. I'm your faithful and dutiful host. And today's guest is Wally. Wally is awesome. Wally is getting me to go fly fishing in Colorado next year. So Wally's got big points. But the other thing, and the real reason Wally's here, is because he is a collaborator and he also has seen the dark side of collaboration. So Wally, before we have you tell people about how amazing you are, about that really cool thing on your shirt there, before we do that, I want to start us off with a story. So I was talking to a newer CEPA, Certified Exit Planning Advisor, in the community, and he was explaining today about how a longtime friend of his, this is a value advisor guy, and his friend is a wealth advisor, how his friend that's known him for a long time, knows what he does, was not willing to collaborate on a joint steak dinner where the advisor brought all of his clients.
Yeah.
Right? And I explained to him, I said, look, what people don't understand is that collaboration, to be really, really effective, occurs after table stakes. Like, the reason people don't collaborate effectively is not because they don't know or trust you, or that they even don't want to help you. It's that there is a form of risk inherently that in their mind, consciously or unconsciously, is not being addressed. And I know you agree because we've talked about it.
Yep.
But let's go get started with, it was a dark story night and we met on a beach. No, that's a different story. But Wally, tell people about yourself, other than the fact that you should have won Member of the Year when I did.
No, that's hilarious. So it was a bright and not stormy afternoon that we met, actually, here within the confines of an Exit Planning Institute national event, and I knew that I needed to meet you because one of our Denver leaders in the space, a gentleman who serves high net worth individuals and also is a very passionate fly fisherman, as it happens to be, had introduced us very, very long before we actually met in the hallway. And you know, it's funny how these things just sort of happen if you allow them to. It was a different wealth manager who you've been actively working with, and actually, we knew each other from just going out, taking one of my clients to a steak dinner and having some discussions with said client about what might be occurring to you. What might you actually be doing 3 to 5 years from now if, for instance, you didn't have to go to work every day? You still might own this business. What if it was a passive income stream for you? What else would you do with your life? And it's a I think the concept of fishing for business is probably going to be woven in and within all of our stories here today. We're going to be telling a lot of fishing stories, but one thing led to another, relationships, and your reputation preceded yourself. And we ended up sitting around for a couple hours there with a number of wealth managers and M&A guys who were asking questions about, how do I build my practice better? And not just better, not just without any extra effort, but how do I leverage my relationships with my clients to better serve them, and who else and what else needs to be a part of that mix? And I think that was really, that was the foundation of our initial meeting there.
Yes.
And we workshopped it. I think that was my favorite part about that discussion. It wasn't, hey, how are you doing, sir? You're wearing a nice suit. I'm wearing a nice suit. Surface stuff. It was, all right, we all know why we're here. We flew halfway across the country and went away from our family for a few days. Let's get down to business and talk about how to serve our clients better. And so my point being, we met through trusted resources, right? Trusted resources who span far and wide, and a collective 80 plus years of business experience, because there's two of them. And more importantly, that trust was allowed you and I to hit the ground running. And I think we probably had about 20 seconds of pleasantries before we just got into it with people.
Well, I did throw it in. I did throw you into the mosh pit.
I love it, right? After the elbows got thrown and the punk rock was done playing, we were all still standing and everybody was smiling and walking away as newfound colleagues and friends. So, but yeah, that's really how we came to be. And I think what I experienced in those first hour to hour and a half of where we met, I experienced in real life the Mike Garrison who is presented in your book, Can I Borrow Your Car? And so in a very real sense, I think you went out of your way to lead with a servant's heart and attitude. And at the same time, you said a couple things to me at the very end with a wink and a smile that meant, hey, this is still not playing games. Like, I brought you in here and now, it's on you to perform to the level that I set you up good, but now you've got to do the rest of that work. And I think that brings us full circle to what you just said there, right? It's not just showing up. First of all, if somebody's going to help you put a bunch of people in front of a steak dinner, do the dang steak dinner. But more important, right? But more importantly, it's what happens after the steak dinner, and it's that persistence. And one of the things that I like to remind folks about is that, if we do have the benefit of working together, we're running a marathon together, right? And I'll even be so bold here, I'm 10 seconds into this initial discussion here publicly to say we are actively looking for people to run the marathon with. And the reason I say that is because...
And there's less of them than they know.
There's less of them than they know. And the reason why I say it that way is because for most of the listeners of this podcast that you're speaking to today, they are helping business owners to understand their business as an investor would. And I cannot emphasize these words enough. If I am to help a business owner understand their business the way that an investor would, and I'm a wealth manager, I have just cracked the code on the next 80% of that client's assets under management.
Period.
But here's the really interesting thing about that. They're going to have that aha moment for 30 to 45 seconds, right? And then it'll go, whew. So the trick is to find people to run that marathon who can not just say, hey, part of the asset class of your overall retirement mix is that privately owned business you're trapped in. You now have 3 to 5 years of potentially very difficult work, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner et al., to get to that point.
If you do a great job.
Right.
Difficult work. So Wally, I'm going to stop you for a second. Tell people about Exitology and who you are. Give them the elevator pitch about who you are so we can dive back into the shit we want to talk about.
I love it. And yes, please keep me on track here. So first of all, thank you for having me here, Mike. My name is Wally Waldron, and my parents named me Jason. And if I get in trouble with you, you can call me that. Otherwise, you better call me Wally, because that's what my friends call me. And so our company, Exitology, we exist to grow, maximize, and unlock the value of privately owned businesses so that the owner can exit on their own terms. Full stop. That's why we're there. What we've done is we've taken business growth strategies on the front end to supercharge and augment the Exit Planning Institute's proven value acceleration methodology so that business owners can maximize that business and unlock their wealth. And we believe that what we've done is we embroidered on their tapestry, so to speak, to take what was a static model and supercharge it so that in many cases we can grow the revenue up to 33% a year, 10x the value of the business, adding up to $10 million of real, tangible, transferable value to the business, and exit the business in as few as 3 years. And there's a lot of things that have to go right to make this happen, clearly, but right? And which is why we're laughing.
We're both practitioners, so we really know exactly how complicated this is.
Yes, and it's not a walk in the park, but that's what we exist to do. And so we are a boutique, right? I know, Mike, you have military background. We are not anything but snipers here at Exitology. We are looking for a few of the perfect situations to help go on these very highly transformational journeys with these business owners. And at the same time, we are always actively having conversations and seeking to help build the overall ecosystem of additional value advisors, of
Yeah,
additional wealth managers, and the whole.
that's the deal. So first of all, like Wally's you're in Denver. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, that's fair enough. We're technically 45 minutes up the hill at 8,400 feet, where I am sauntering around the woods with the deer and the elk.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, like, there's a couple of things that I want to hit, and it's all about collaboration.
Mhm.
So one of the things that is important is like Wally and I met as a direct result of the Snyder's vision to create a big tent
Yep.
where people, like-minded people, not predators, can identify each other and then collaborate. Because to a small-minded person, they might say Wally and I are competitors, and I would say, well, you don't know either one of us.
Yeah.
Because I don't do what Wally does, and it's not, and you don't really do what I do.
No.
But what we're doing when we're doing it is really the same. And I want to start with this, like, and this is out of left field, so well, actually,
Love it.
I'm just doing it. Like, I think the most important collaborative relationship when you look at growing a business as a consultant, like we are, as a financial advisor, but the most important collaborator is the client. And I'm getting there because I spent a lot of time talking to value advisors about how to grow their business, and they always freak out when I talk about being very, very, very involved and discerning in the qualification process for that business owner. Because if, like, fundamentally, my personal planning process is 90 days minimum. I have to see a written financial plan. I have to see the business books, or we're not going forward. And like the quote I got, and you're going to laugh. Well, what if the business owner doesn't want to do that? And I'm like, I don't work with them. And he looked at me, and I'm like, dude, like you put it like, if you're listening right now, remember what Wally said. We're going on a marathon.
Right.
The most important person is the dude or the lady that's going to be running that race. Can they get to the finish line?
Right. I am cracking up as you say this, because this is the farthest thing from left field. It reminds me of John Wooden, the great basketball coach. Every single year he would start his teams off with the same speech, and he would hold up a basketball and say, "Gentlemen, this is a basketball." And you know what he would teach them right after that? He would teach them how to put their shoes and socks on properly. And everybody would hem and haw and complain and all this stuff. And then he would nicely but firmly explain, well, how are you going to shoot baskets and win a championship for me if you have blisters on your feet? And all of a sudden it started to dawn on them that perhaps there were some fundamental structural things that needed to be in place. It's the same thing with exactly what you just said. And so the reason I'm chuckling here, if you'll allow me to peel back the onion a little bit, we have three main criteria for the client, right? And what you stated was that the most important person in this discussion is the client. And of course it is, right? That's right. Right. I mean, So first of all, I remember talking with Chris Snyder about this a few years ago, and I asked him in no uncertain terms. I just said, so how did you come across this whole thing? And it was really simple. He said, I asked a question, how come I was having an 80% success rate when everyone else doing the same thing was having a 20% success rate? And I mean, you could probably still hear my brain exploding from that statement. It was like, well, thank goodness that you documented the dang thing and brought the rest of us into the story.
Yeah, I really thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
On the small percentage chance you listen to this,
right? Yeah, Chris Snyder, super fan club, right? And that was a really important statement for me because our job as exit planners, as certified exit planning advisors, is to deploy that and iterate upon it and create better results for these clients. Because the truth of the matter is, you walk into a room and you say, in 2 years, who wants to exit your business? And there's 40 people in the room and they all go, me! And they raise their hand and they're all excited, right?
And they're all lying.
And because they don't know what they're saying yes to. And so, right? And so you come back 2 years later and you ask a different question to those 40 people in the room and you say, who's happy? And there's one person in the back, not smug, but very humbly says, I'm happy. Why are you happy? Because I am personally fulfilled and I'm financially secure, right? What about the other 7? Well, they're experiencing what we call profound regret. And of course, we have the receipts to prove this through the state of owner readiness surveys that go out every year and all these other areas. Then there's 32 people who are back at square one and haven't made any progress. And this gets to my point of where I'm trying to answer this question for you, where we look for 3 things. And I'm going to tell you what those are, and then I'm giving an example of how this can actually fall off the wagon pretty quickly if they're not in place. We look for capacity, right? Can you grow into or build the capacity that you need to actually go through this transformational event, right? CEPAs would call it structural capital particularly, right? But then that's going to set up the foundation for this growth. Do you have a hungry and high-performing sales team, even if it's a sales team of 1, right? In your book, you talk about referrals and trust for about 85 pages. And then, oh, by the way, you guys, none of this will work if you don't have a sales process. So you might want to look into that, right?
There's the reason I waited.
But that's it needs to be in place.
Well, the safest drivers are the best salespeople.
Yes. And after you reveal that, you do hammer it, and I think it speaks to your methodology as a fisherman, right? Once you've got them on the hook and you're starting to pull them in a little bit, then it's, oh, by the way, the safest drivers have been commercially trained salespeople because, wait for it, they're professionals, right? Very important. And then here's the other part. You need a growth mindset, right? And so those are the 3 things that we always look for, but I would invite everybody to look for those things. And here's why. Going back to your comment there, Mike, about do people know what they're really asking for to exit this business? We were hired about a year ago by a company who we are now firing literally today, and they're done as of pretty much this discussion. And it's no harm and no foul. We have helped them as much as we will be able to. And the reason why is because we took them through our process. We discovered that they had a very healthy, safe growth rate, 68. Wow. As in you've got way too much capacity to grow into.
Exactly.
What they didn't have was a high-performing sales team. So our first intervention and part of our value acceleration strategy was to start to build that, right? And then further, what we found over the longer term, which ended up being about a 9-month term, this is a 9-month term for something that should be a long-term investment in the most important transaction of your life. I hope you guys are hearing between the lines a little bit here. Mm-hmm. They wanted to take a sprint approach and not a marathon approach is the bottom line here. But what happened was they got hung up on the 2 or 3 really tough things on the front end about trying to grow into and create a high-performing sales team. Well, why do we do that? To fund the rest of the initiative. Well, if your sales team isn't closing big enough deals and we find you people and define what a big enough deal looks like, but the sales team can't go after those deals, then you either need to get a new sales team or whatever, right? So it can be very uncomfortable is my point. Here's the next part about the growth mindset. What does it feel like to be a long-term investor? I'll tell you, it feels like throwing a bunch of money away on a hope and a dream until eventually it becomes the best decision of your life.
Yes.
Right? So my point being, and then we already covered the capacity part, but my point being, this is what we are up against as advisors. We know for sure that we brought lasting value to this company. We also know for sure that the bullish case scenario and what we saw possible for them over the next 5 to 8 years is never going to happen for them. And that's okay.
Well, you know the first rule when you're trained as a lifeguard?
I do not know the first rule when you're trained as a lifeguard.
Don't let them drown you too.
That is interesting. Yeah.
It applies really well to consulting.
Yeah, for sure, right? And yeah, we always learn from successes, but you learn a lot more from failures or mistakes, right?
Absolutely. And ideally faster.
Totally, right? And yeah, and that's one of our sayings here is fail fast, pivot hard. And then what we do after it kind of gets people's attention, we actually say, let me tweak that for you. Feedback fast, pivot hard.
Yeah. So let me take you back on collaboration for a little bit.
Love it.
Because this is going to we're going to protect the wicked and we're going to keep the innocent private. So when I look at growing a business as a responsible business owner, having exited multiple ones myself,
Yep.
some well, some not well.
Been there.
When I look at that, um, the timeline of the process, however it's defined, really sets the stage for responsibilities and obligations within collaborations. When I look at this stuff, you and the financial advisor,
Yes.
like, and I'm saying you're the exit, the value advisor.
Mm-hmm.
These are the two most accountable people in the process, with the financial advisor being the most accountable because they are ostensibly going to be around after the exit, and they will be judged accordingly.
Absolutely.
They will be judged accordingly. And so
Yes.
when you look at the statistics about people that successfully exit and how miserable they are afterwards, I guarantee you that financial advisor is getting canned.
You know, that's really interesting, right? Because put differently, what happens if you create a great business outcome and it becomes a terrible personal outcome?
So moving, we're putting a pin in that one.
Yep.
It would be crass, but hey, my marketing team, I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. That goes in the promotional materials,
Yep.
right? Because when you look at it, I always use a residential real estate transaction as a
Sure.
great model
Yep.
that business owners understand. They do not understand the
Right.
exit planning process. And I say, hey, look, the financial advisor, for good, bad, or indifferent, is the most committed person. They're the realtor. They only get paid after everyone's paid and
Right.
you've got the keys,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But then we've got the other people, like some people fly in, fly out, and how well they collaborate can ruin or bless everything. So from your perspective, having been involved in, I'm just going to be really dozens and upon dozens
Yes.
of these experiences, how do you balance or align or navigate the multitude of professional collaborations that you both get assigned, as in these are native relationships to that business owner already, or that you bring in? Because like it's a volatile little cocktail, as you well know, Wally.
Yeah.
How do you approach that? Because number one, you are a really thoughtful dude, and I'm really confident you've got answers because I'm sure you've experienced it.
Yeah, 100%. So you started this question along what I thought was a fascinating conversation that you and I have been involved in multiple facets about who owns the timeline. And so I'm going to start with answering your question and then backtracking it into who owns the timeline, because it's a little bit nuanced. And so the first thing that we go back to on our side is informing everybody involved that in service of the mission that we already shared with you, to help you grow, maximize, and unlock the business value on your own terms, right? Unlock the exit on your own terms, right? In other words, what does your perfect exit look like, right? That was the words that Chris Snyder used in his book, right? I saw the perfect exit. I wanted other people to experience that. So, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just asking, what does your perfect exit look like? We have to educate everybody involved who is listening, which hopefully everybody who is involved, that we have one metric that we're ultimately adhering to, and that is the transferable value metric.
1,000,000%.
And so does that mean right? And that's not just, hey, is the EBITDA going up? Is the multiple going up? It's no. Are those things going up, and are you more transferable and less risky than you were 30 days ago, 90 days ago, a year ago? And
because you can raise one metric and negatively impact transferability.
That's exactly it. And so on purpose, it's both of those words, because it needs to be more transferable and more valuable, right? And sometimes the value stays the same and all the value comes out of the transferability.
And I don't care what software says.
No, exactly.
I love software, but it's like, so something I'm going to throw out there is this. And I know this is cool because you and I talked about it, and we're friends with Rick Krebs and some of the other guys, right?
Yeah, love it.
But I always, when I'm talking to one of my clients, and my clients are all financial advisors.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, it's a little simpler to sell those businesses.
The financial advisors' businesses.
It's complex in a different way, but we don't need to get into that right now. I made a client about $5 million today in one conversation.
Nice.
By pointing out just how rat screwed he was getting by somebody. And he's like, man, I didn't see that. I'm like, so can I raise my price? He goes, no, you're good. But my point being this is I always tell the client, and this is my triggering event is, hey, can you guarantee you'll be home tonight? Okay, great. Depending upon their answer to that, we'll go forward. But we get to this point, and I'm interested in how you look at it because it's because what you said. I say, look, everyone there's going to be minimum a dozen different professionals minimum involved in a multi-year process with you here.
Yep.
Some people like me, we're there every day almost, right? And a financial advisor. Some people are just parachuting in and parachuting out.
Yep.
I said, but would it make sense that from the very beginning, we determine everything by what the buyer wants?
That's
and the business owners, because you got to get that business owner ready to collaborate, especially like the clients you and I want are multi-millionaires usually already.
Right.
We got to get their attention to help deliver what they want. We have to get their attention to deliver what they want. And when I say what the buyer wants, if they get me, then now I got a chance.
Yep. Well, but maybe, right? And here's
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
Fair enough.
Yeah. Here's why I say that.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Because going back to the original question, which is how do you determine whose timeline we're going to adhere to, right?
And how do you get them to collaborate well, which is the big question.
So we were students of, the 7 habits of highly successful people. If you read the first chapter of Exitology, the book that I wrote, it'll ask you, where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? And then the next question is, so which is it, 3 or 5 years, right? I'm playing with you from day number 1.
But it's important
to think about it, right? And so the question is, first, it kind of goes like this, I think. It goes first, the buyer owns the timeline, right? Eventually, the owner of the business should own the timeline. At different phases along the journey, the timeline's going to get passed around. And here's an example that I was sharing with a wealth manager here at breakfast. I said, and I'm speaking to the whole audience here because I see this a lot in our EPI circles. And I mean, probably 80 or 90% of the wealth managers that I see in EPI come in and then have almost an entrepreneurial explosion. They get way too much information, way too context to the point of being paralyzed. And I said, let me help you through this. And it was really simple. I said, you sit your next client down like this, and they're a business owner client. You do one of your normal projections with the wealth that they've built so far. I said, there's your Monte Carlo, and here's where you're probably going to end up. I said, now let's have a second conversation. How much do you think your business is worth? And what do we think is realistic? What could it be worth 3 years from now? Let's put those numbers in and do the same Monte Carlo analysis, and then just simply ask your client which of those 3 makes the most sense for them to go after. Right?
Totally.
Done. Please do that.
Yeah, and like, because we got about 12 more minutes.
Okay.
12 more minutes, and you will be back for another episode because we're not going to be finished.
Awesome.
But so let's dive into that financial advisor because I am number one. I have been one. I'm super passionate. That's my tribe. Those are my people.
Totally.
Because they've got lots of money and they charge for advice, and that's my favorite type of client.
Well, and here's what I think is cool, and I learned this from you because I'd never thought of it this way, but wealth advisors, they have a really cool job, and that is to essentially be your rabbi and not lose you as a client. And I mean that in a very sincere way because it's the only business model I know where your payment doubles approximately every 7 years if you just don't screw it up too bad.
Yeah,
so,
and if the economy doesn't get crushed, but
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so there you go. But so when you look at it, so here's what terrifies financial advisors, right? And by the way, I am shooting goldfish in a bowl because Wally's a president of an EPI chapter. He's had discussions with 100 financial advisors plus.
I mean, that would be a low number.
over 100.
Yeah,
Over 100.
it's got to, I mean, you have to remember I started my career running IT at a full service accounting firm and helped break out, their investment advisory into its own Raymond
Yeah,
James
man.
advisory and all
Good
that
stuff.
stuff. So,
So
yeah.
when you look at it, I think collaboration for the financial advisor often doesn't progress because a couple of different reasons. Number one, they don't feel like they're qualified to talk with that business owner about the business side of the house, which you eloquently, in almost the exact same manner I do. I'm like, well, let's look at portfolio design,
Right.
right? What if a client had 90% of their assets in one stock? What would you do? And if they're a speaker, they go, you're talking about the business. I go, yeah, like you're
Right.
qualified to talk to the business owner. You don't have to be a CPA to know that taxes are kind of important,
Right.
right? And so I think confidence is something I hear from them that they're not confident.
Sure.
The other thing I hear from them is a profound fear of outside collaborators either taking their client to another financial advisor,
Yep.
which is a legit fear because it happens,
Sure.
and or blowing up the relationship
Yep.
because like these business owners that we want to work with as value advisors
Yep.
are worth 7 figures
Yep.
over the lifetime for those clients,
That's
for
right.
those financial advisors.
Yeah, so I think we need to take it sort of one at a time, right? And so first of all, the reason why you got involved in EPI is so that you have another tool in your to acquire new business. And the tool is a blue ocean strategy, and that is to unlock trapped value in your already existing business owner client's business, right?
Right there. Right there.
Right there. And when I say blue ocean strategy, I'm saying if you want to have 80% more assets under management in the next 5 to 10 years, then take this very seriously, right? And if you're more comfortable just stealing the other guy's assets under management across the street, then go back to doing that. But that sounds miserable to me.
Well, you're going to lose the chat GPT within 5 years.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a good point too. So there's that. But more importantly, then the second thing I hear is I'm banging my head against doing these, getting the client talk track involved so I can help them see the business as an investor. And then, I took this concept up to compliance and now it's 9 months later. First of all, you don't have to do it that way. And second of all, the reason why you're out of steam is because taking anything to anywhere and then coming back to it in 9 months, you have to start from scratch from a momentum psychological standpoint. So just make it easier on your life. Look for value advisors who you trust. We're going to put ourselves out there as one of those. And here's why. Because this is what it looks like. I will walk you through how this happens because we do this with our Denver wealth managers. I say, if you believe that it's important for that business owner to see their business as an asset and you haven't had a lot of these conversations, we already have. So our job is very simple, going back to the car analogy, right? We would like to sit there in the car and drive it with you for an hour. And what that looks like is we're going to have a very simple conversation. Hey, Mike Garrison asked me to sit down with you, Mr. Client. And our goal here today is to see how much your business might be worth today, what it could be worth 3 years from now, and just talk about the meaningfulness of that. Are you up for that? Cool. And then you take them through one of these software platforms or even your own talk track, however you arrive at this. But you want to just give them a very high level estimate of what their business is today and the good and bad and ugly about that and be very real about it. And then the potential of what it could be. But more importantly, you keep coming at it as an asset class, to your point, Mike, because, right, that's the language that everybody is comfortable with and you are in their frame. You are in their world. I am the welcome guest and I am... Right. And then speaking directly to, right. So my job for the client is to help them see that business as an asset class and the good, bad, and ugly about dealing with that asset class, basically. Right. Is that fair?
I always say, I don't care if you drive on the right side of the road in your country. In mine, it's on the left.
Right.
Right. And this is where collaboration and just because I want to make sure I have some time to let you talk about your best piece of advice. But what I like about what you just said and that I want to reinforce is the conversation about how that meeting's going to go occurs before the meeting.
Yes.
And Wally, think that you read my book, I've read yours, but I think sometimes you and I don't understand that our built-in required hardware, we are going to talk about how the car is going to be driven.
Right.
Sometimes I don't think that we highlight how important that is when you first start driving other people's cars.
Yeah. The way, I think about it like this almost. If the meeting we're going to have with a client is, let's say, an hour long, that's optimistically a minimum of a 4-hour endeavor, right?
Correct.
And let me unpack that a little bit. All right, first of all, why on my side? Because my job is to increase the trust window that you and your client have. And if I am never to be thought of or involved in that conversation ever again, I'm still on mission for helping you over those 45 minutes in front of that client, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very likely that you and I are going to have 10 of those conversations before said proper client that's going to work with Exitology arrives.
It's nice to be invited back again.
That's the point, right? This is not a sprint. This is a marathon, right? Yeah. So you don't win the marathon on mile 1, right? You still have 25.2 miles to go. So I think that's important. And you said it perfectly. It's great to be invited back again and again and again. And so the way that we do that, my job very sincerely is to help you look like a hero in front of that client, because what will inevitably happen if we're not careful is by the time it comes to harvest and manage that wealth, you'd better know it's coming, and we'd better have such a good relationship with that client to make sure that that final check gets put in the right bank account, because we've all seen this before. Wealth manager got you here for the first 25 years, and then commercial banker swoops in at the last minute and says, when you get that check, let's put it over here. And then all of a sudden you're wait a minute. No.
Yeah. No, it will. And there are teams at all of the wirehouses dedicated to accomplishing that specific goal.
Yep.
And if you're an independent RIA, and by the way, I'm not throwing shade at any of the wirehouses because they've been in exit planning for a while, right? You can argue nuances, but like they are all about getting the exit value because they loan the money that helped the owner get there.
Yep.
Right. And so if you're wondering why maybe Wells Fargo is not coming for that little 401k that you manage,
yep,
it's because they don't care yet.
Yep. Yeah. It's true, right?
You and I know that's true.
Right.
And like, by the way, like that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that they know what they're doing. And like, yeah. I've got friends who are on these teams. So I know the conversations,
right?
And it's really simple. It goes like this. Hey, Wally, I know you worked with Jim for a long time, and you got a 401k with him. He's a nice guy and everything. There's only one problem. Like, you're about to make $30 million. And I know for a fact that Jim doesn't manage a single account over 5.
And that guy can prove it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like collaboration is the key, whether you're at a wirehouse, like some of my favorite UBS guys, or whether you're a solopreneur, working in a small town. It's like, but please understand, what makes this thing fun for me, and I know it makes it fun for you, is having another collaborator that really understands what Wally and I have been joyfully and having fun unpacking this complexity, because that's the key. As a financial advisor, you can bring Wally in. I think by the way, he's about to give you his contact information. It'll be in the podcast notes. But I want you to look at Wally not as someone that's there to take business away from you or to get paid a lot by you. His vision is to identify, protect, grow, and transfer the biggest asset you have. Like, you want to get out of the $500,000 IRA rollovers? Start booking some exits.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole name of the game, right? Is I always think of, you have a chart behind you as I'm looking at this, right? And it's that stair step chart, right? So if you think of your assets under management and you're just playing the retention game, right, with the occasional rollover, you'll see this very nice little line that kind of follows the S&P 500 and it's around 7.2% a year, whatever it is, right? Now imagine that same line, except there's giant stair steps up on that same line. It doesn't take too many exits to double, triple, quadruple your assets under management with the same work you're already doing. And the really important thing on a human level here is you're creating optionality for your clients.
Okay, that's where we're going to stop because that's our next one.
That's our next one.
That's my favorite part of what we do, Wally.
That's the most important part.
It is when the client goes, when we started this process, I thought it was going to be this, and it still can be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just had a client that hit their wealth gap. We've got an offer in hand, and we're not necessarily going to take it because we've expanded optionality.
Yes.
All right. Dang you. Okay. So
to be continued.
Before we go, I want you to tell them where you're at, how they find you, tell them about the book.
Sure.
And then we're going to have to roll.
Awesome. www.exitology.com. And as you can hear by the name, we're here applying what we study all day long. 70-217-2642. There's a phone number. We're going to put it out there, right? And if you go to exitology.com/book, it'll take you directly to the Amazon book listing. We'd be happy to invite you to an executive briefing and unpack how we are creating these results for clients and how it matters to your clients and you.
All over the country.
All over the country. We have clients who are technically multinational, third generation businesses who were in the middle of a 3, 5, maybe 8-year exit plan. We have other clients who have exited for an extra $2.3 million in 4.5 months and everything in between. So we'd love to keep unpacking it. And, at the end of the day, it's about that business owner and what can they create with their life that they couldn't without our collective interventions. So thank you, Mike.
Coolest thing. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Can I Borrow Your Car podcast, your guide to growing your business by loving people, giving first, and earning the right to be introduced to your ideal clients. Visit caniborrowyourcar.com for more information and connect with Mike on LinkedIn. All links are included in the episode description. Until next time, be a safe driver.